Yes, people, welcome back to the Life in Sports show. It brings me great excitement to be recording from a new venue, to be stepping up the quality a little bit, and to be bringing in some interesting and exciting guests where we can have some insightful and meaningful conversation where we can all learn a little bit. So, this is what I'm going to consider as season two of the List show, Life in Sport. And yeah, without further ado, we're just going to go straight into it and let our amazing guest who has taken the time out to come and be here speak and introduce themselves. So without further ado,
Tarek, thank you. My name is Matt. I am a player care manager in the Women's Academy at Tottenham Hotspur, and I am really delighted to be down here today to talk on life in sport.
so wait, before we get started, yeah, before we get into the nitty gritty, I just thought like I was on my way here, so I got you.
No,
little
thank you.
so if you open it up and show the camera,
Yeah. Oh, it's stuck slightly.
it kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's okay. We can work with it. We can work with it.
So you show the camera. It's Tottenham cake.
Oh, is it Tottenham
Yeah,
cake?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
mate,
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even know that existed.
Well, there we
No
go.
idea that
Tottenham
existed.
cake. So I got you some Tottenham
Thank
cake.
you.
So
I'm going to look forward to enjoying that. Thank you.
kind of, I don't know, like it might be a cheesy joke. It might be a bit of a.
I'm a huge
but
fan.
Here's
I'm a
some
huge
Tottenham
fan.
cake for Tottenham player care manager.
Thank
I
you.
just thought it was
Thank
appropriate.
you. I
get
think
me,
that's
like-
massive.
So, first of all, let's start with a little bit. Let's just keep the tone a bit relaxed.
it light,
I'm a
yeah.
bit excited.
Yeah.
I can't help it. It's the first time I've been itching to like get out there and be on
Yeah.
camera and
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
and whatnot. So let's start. I've been recently starting my shows with reflection.
Mhm.
So I talk to the guests. Maybe start in the beginning with reflection
Yeah.
might sound funny, but I think it's what I like to do. So
Yeah. Go with it.
at time of recording, it's the afternoon.
Yep.
So usually this is a end of the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you can put it down to this off. You can reflect from your day up to now, or you can
Yep.
reflect yesterday, whatever you want.
Yeah.
The reason I like to do it is I like to see how my guests feel and what they're thankful for, what they're looking forward to. So
Yeah.
you ask yourself these three questions.
Yeah.
3 questions. So question number 1 is name one good thing that happened today. Could talk about yesterday, whatever.
Yeah.
Question following it up with how did you make it happen?
Yeah.
And then number 3 is how can you repeat and build
Yeah.
on that good thing that has happened?
Yeah.
So just like a nice way
Okay,
to set the
okay,
tone. So
okay. So-
on to you, Matt.
So what number one was?
Name one good thing that happened. So if you're not ready to name today, just
Yeah.
talk about yesterday or some point.
I could probably do one today, one maybe for the more last couple of days. I think
Go
today,
for it.
finally meeting you,
Yeah.
Tarek. We've been chatting over LinkedIn, had a lot of calls, spoken lots about player care in depth and how to build our career in the industry. So to meet with you and get to chat, and we've just been for a wander and had a really nice in-depth personal chat, which was wonderful. So really pleased about that. I think more personally over the weekend, like I said to you earlier, I played football yesterday. We won 2-1. It was played in a position I have never played before, centre mid. So that was also a really good experience for me as well doing that. So yeah, that's the answer to question 1. What was number 2?
Question 2 was how did you make it happen?
I think I'll answer on the first part of the first answer. I think making it happen was probably us building a really positive relationship. I think over time, you reached out to me on LinkedIn and we've had loads of good chats, and I think we feel probably the empathy between each other of the interests and passions that we have in life. So following that up, we're building a good relationship.
And then how can you build and how can you repeat and build on the good things so far?
I think reflecting on what's been really beneficial in how we've probably connected over LinkedIn, how we've built and over time, I think is really important, thinking about the relationships and what's successful between people. So obviously we've spoken a lot about player care and very professional, how to get into the industry from a professional perspective, but I do think actually moving and building that forward, for me it's understanding how can I take that approach to other relationships. So if that's in my professional aspect of in work as player care, you have to navigate coaches, psychologists, S&C, physios, players, parents, so many different people. So the relationship that we've built positively using empathy and great understanding, how can I take that elsewhere? So I think that's a real big builder for me going forward.
Love that. Great answers. Very reflective, and I think it's so important to be able to reflect and look back, because then, as I've said, in like whether it's on a LinkedIn post or whether it's on a little short that I might release before this comes out, um, yeah, it's these skills.
Yeah.
You need to look back to look forward, and if
100%.
you can look back and analyze and think about and reflect, as is what we
Definitely.
called it,
Yeah.
then you're able to move forward with a lot more purpose and a lot more drive.
Mm.
And these little things are what help you get to that next step in whatever you are pursuing.
Definitely.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of what our conversation today is going to be about, is first of all, let's just touch a little bit on how we know each other.
Mm.
So, me personally, what brings me great pleasure to have you here is that you work in player care, you are in the industry. Player care is the industry, me personally, outside of all this, outside of what I do at work professionally, is what I'm trying to break into. So over the summer, last summer 24, I was taught, if you need to network, reach out to people that are already there, and get some advice, get some advice, get some insight, learn, and obviously you were the first person that I ever reached out to and spoke to.
Mm.
So yeah, that's just a bit of context on how we know each other, and just adding further layers to what you
Yeah.
said at the start.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been, obviously my approach was like, yeah, I want to know like how you got into it, but I want to
Yeah.
know how you got into it,
Yeah.
not how the
Yeah.
average person gets into it, because
Yeah.
it's a very personal journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think especially in the world of sport, there's so many very clear avenues. If you think about being a coach, you need to get your especially in football, your level 1, level 2, C license, B license, A license, pro license. If you want to go to the top of the game, if you want to be a nutritionist or a psychologist, you've got to go to university, get a degree, get accredited. There's very defined pathways, whereas for player care or athlete lifestyle or performance lifestyle, there's no, especially in football, no clearly defined path at the moment. So you reaching out was, I think, also a really nice experience and journey for me, because maybe I've started that or gone on that journey, and it's now nice to try and return that favour to somebody else. So yeah, it's the career path of player care is not a defined one. So
Yeah, and this is where I'm gonna go to the nitty gritty question that will be a big part of a big talking point for us, and hopefully
Yeah.
for other people already in the industry, and from people in the outside
yeah,
learning about something that is
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
a niche. It is quite new compared to other areas that you
Very,
would find in
very.
the sport.
yeah.
And my question to you is, what is player care?
Player care, to me, I think player care can be defined by different people in different ways. For me personally, it's about helping a person become the best version of themselves. So that can be defined as developing performance in every area of life. So if we use football as an example, footballers and players go on the pitch trying to be the best player in the gym, on the pitch, on the training pitch, every time they go out there. But how do we as player care or athlete lifestyle, however it is defined, support individuals to go out and be the best version of themselves in every aspect of life? So we drive performance, if that is managing a schedule at home, life challenges that they might face, that could just be anything from little life admin tasks through to bereavement, through to moving house, changing country. How do we help them manage that independently? So yeah, to me it's helping someone become the best version of themselves.
Okay. And why is that so important in like an elite sports setting, in a football academy or in any kind of equivalent?
Yeah, I think in the world of sport, someone's sporting life in comparison to the life that they live is short. So if we use football for an example, somebody might break through 16, 17, 18, early 20s. They will retire usually averagely between the ages of 35 and 40. So actually their footballing career might be no more than 20 years. Now that will be an amazing 20 years if they get to go and become a top level footballer, play for their country or amass lots of top level appearances. But what are you going to do for the rest of your life after you finish being a footballer? A massive challenge in the world of player care is social identity of the young people or players and people as they come through the industry, and how do we help them discover who they are as a person and use the skills they learn as a person but as a footballer to develop themselves as a individual beyond life as a footballer, because most footballers will, or players will, very, very much go through life from their kind of early teens through to 30, 40 and be like, I'm a footballer, I'm a footballer, I'm a footballer, I'm a footballer. That stops. That could also stop really early. You could get to 25 and have a career-ending injury. How do you navigate the next steps of being a person? So that's why it's really important.
Okay. So I'm gonna hold on the identity topic for a little later.
For a hot minute.
For a, not hard, but like, you know, we'll hold off on it because
yeah.
there's a lot of meat to like delve into and that.
Yeah.
And so what I want to talk about is, because I've got you here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey into player care and your
Yeah.
passion for football, your passion for sport.
Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning. Okay, so I've always, as a young person, I've always been involved in sport in some way. I used to do karate as a kid. I've never had my own sport that I nailed down as an individual. So I've always loved sport. I've tried loads of different sports. So that kind of influenced my academic journey as a kid, or as a young adult. So when I went to university, I did sports psychology, and I was adamant I wanted to be a sports psychologist. I did the first 6 months of my first year. I was like, I do not want to be a sports psychologist. I realised you've got to get a BSc, you've got to get an MSc, you've got to get accredited PhD, get things accredited in journals. And for me, that was just too much life admin for me to crack on with life. And I'm dyslexic, so I struggle academically, or taking academics in. So wanted to be in sport, but didn't know what I wanted to do. So I kind of looked at the scope of jobs out there, and you see coaches, you see S&C, you see nutrition, you see sports psychology. There's all these defined roles, but none of them jumped out at me. And I did a 4-year degree. I had a third year placement year, so I was really lucky. I got to go to the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. I spent a year out there, and I worked in the University of Queensland's a top 50 uni in the world. It's an amazing university. And out there, I was athlete career education assistant. It was an unpaid internship for a year, so I didn't earn any money out there or for the job I did. But I just thought, working with athletes, supporting with their career, that sounds quite interesting. It's supporting them. That's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to support an athlete, but I didn't know how it was. So went out there and spent a year basically supporting Olympic athletes, managing their career in education whilst trying to be a full-time athlete. And that's where my burning passion for kind of athlete lifestyle support, player care began. I knew that's the role. Basically, you are the person who supports the person, and that's instantly where I felt quite an affinity to the world of athlete support.
Was there a specific moment where you were like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, there was an athlete. I won't name names, but there was an athlete at the university who was preparing for the Olympics, and for me that was an amazing moment of, right, one, I'm a 20-year-old kid, still actually a university student, helping I think they were mid-20s athlete prepare for the Olympics, and they came into myself and the kind of the I think their title was like development support manager in the sport academy, and it was just about managing their timetable to be able to fit in training as a full-time paid Olympian, as well as sorting out their academics. So we sat down. And it was like, right, what are the challenges? We kind of did a pros cons list, or worked out a list of challenges. Okay, we ordered everything. What's kind of the burning one and what's kind of the least? And we sat there and we worked out what the key challenges were. And then we kind of set up a timetable, a list of to-do lists, schedules, what's paramount, what's not, ordered everything, put everything into a timetable. And the athlete just went, Matt, this has been brilliant, thank you. And they left that room knowing what kind of the next 2 weeks looked like, whereas before they walked in, they had no idea. They were not panicking, but worrying about what kind of the approach to the next 2 weeks was going to be. And just that sit-down conversation I had with an athlete of just helping them schedule their life and allay their concerns and make them feel better about their very immediate short-term journey, for me was like, that's it. I found what I want to do.
I know, it's amazing, that kind of stuff. I mean, you're having an impact on someone that in like, to outside it could be such a basic thing, like organising timetable, to-do list, such basic things, but like, it's, you know what it is, Here's another question, because this is the journey I'm on. I'm trying to work with different people. So how do you? Obviously, with this particular person you spoke about, they came to you,
Yeah.
and that's already a massive advantage
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they came to you, they wanted support and they were gonna accept it.
Mm.
How did you? In other situations, was it as straightforward?
No.
And if so, how did you get that buy-in? How did you get them to think, yeah, okay, Matt is gonna I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Now,
help. Matt
now
is gonna be useful for me.
football's a really good world for that because player care is a very new, maybe like 15, 20 years ago, sports psychology was the new thing in sport, getting the 1% of I think it's Dave Brailsford from like former Team Sky, British Cycling, kind of detailed that it's those 1%. And that's where I think player care is a journey at the moment in football. And so actually achieving buy-in, not just from players or young people or the athletes you support, but also people around you is still a challenge. And it's using those maybe little ad-libs I used at the start of around developing performance in all areas of life, making a dependent athlete more independent. So going back to the example of the Olympic athlete in Brisbane, not only did I just help them with that situation there and then we resolved something, I was, without probably me knowing it, because it's very early on in my career, by me sitting down and detailing a way of resolving something, that athlete then picks up well, actually, next time I have that challenge, I don't need to go to Matt. I know how to do it myself now. You're building that independence. So it's helping the individual you're working with understand your benefit, detailing a shared common goal. I want to help you become the best athlete you can be, or I want to help your athlete become the best athlete that person can be. The reason why we do it is for the same collective goal. So detailing a collective goal. I think also, like I said, being able to also show the impact that you have. So if that is, I want to help an athlete become the best they can be, also let me show that. So an opportunity would be, big one in football is transferable skills, especially at academy level. So helping somebody be able to plan their time better, become a stronger communicator. So I've used in the past with previous academy managers of, I need time with this player, but the time with this player, if I get that, the benefit should be they communicate better off pitch. If they're injured, they will communicate it earlier, physio can pick it up sooner, rehab journey is shorter. Secondly, if we make them more confident as a communicator on the football pitch, they become a stronger communicator. So ultimately, the work I do off pitch impacts on pitch. So again, impacts that shared common goal. There's a lot of ways of hopefully going about showing somebody, actually by buying into what I want to do, it helps you. But also empathy. It's so massive in player care or athlete lifestyle or performance lifestyle, is you want people to understand that you're there for them. A lot of the time, I think, and I don't want to speak on behalf of athletes, but I know this has been relayed to me before, sometimes athletes feel like products. They feel like a robot in a system. And whilst I think the football industry is moving away from that, by showing somebody that you just care for them, and you want the best for them, if that's as a person or as a footballer, again, they get buy-in from you. So by showing the empathy that you can hold towards the individual, not the player or the athlete, but the person, somebody feels a bit more respect. So there's lots of different ways, and it can be quite challenging, but you have to persist. Persistence is key.
Okay. Yeah, no, that person-centered approach is absolutely key.
Yeah.
Because I think they're used to being, if we're talking in football terms, they're used to being the footballer their whole lives, especially if they come through the system.
Yeah.
So reeling it back a little bit, so University of Brisbane,
Yep.
Olympian,
Yeah.
and other athletes.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there?
From there, came back for my fourth year at university. In my first and second year, I was achieving average maybe like 50% on my grades. I went to uni. I was having a lovely time. I was being a young student. Maybe my academics could have been better. Went on that placement year and was like, I know where I want to go and I know what I want to do, and that just lit a fire in me about go back and make the most of the final year. Started my final year of university, the first thing I did was I emailed the sport development manager who oversaw the sports scholarship program and the TAS program, which is Talented Athletes Scholarship Scheme. I recommend anybody to look into it if you're looking to get into athlete support in a player care or lifestyle aspect. And just said to him, sat down in a meeting and went, probably what you've done with me. What have you done? How did you do it? When did you do it? What qualifications did you do to get to where you are now? Because that's where I want to get to. So did that, did my dissertation, got about 65-70% for my final year, which was really pleased with. And because I did that meeting, the sport department at the university, that sport development manager was actually going on, I think it was gardening leave for
Gardening?
not gardening, adoption leave, sorry.
Okay.
So he was adopting a child, was
Okay.
going off on kind of the paternity, as it were. And they said, do you want basically a job for 3 months? I didn't have a job lined up, and I thought, smashing, I'll do it. So I basically covered the administration of the scholarship scheme. Off the back of that, they gave me a permanent job. Did a few different things from like operations and facilities, but they paid for me to complete the talented athlete lifestyle support qualification.
Great course, by the way. I've done
Brilliant
it as well.
course. Yeah, well, that's with TAS as well. And because I put myself out there, they gave me a job, and then they paid for me to do a qualification, which has basically led me to everything I've done now. So in the meantime, from that, I then worked full time across a couple of different things, but continuously supported athletes, dual career athletes at the university, and then went on to work at University of Exeter, and covered the sports scholarship scheme there, and again supported dual career athletes full time there, and then kind of done a couple of bits in between around, like I said, supporting athletes in dual career mainly, worked in the education sector, and then my main break into football was with Bristol City. I worked as education and player care lead in the academy, in the women's academy there. And now I am literally about a month and a half into working for Tottenham Hotspur, which has been a ride, a journey, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Obviously, like, congratulations on the Tottenham. I've already said
Thank
it to
you.
you
Yeah,
at the time when it
appreciate
was,
it.
but we're
Yeah,
on camera, like,
with our
showing
friends
the love.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Appreciate it.
first of all, I think the thing that stood out to me, well, it stood out to me because I think this is going to be of such value to everyone else watching, listening, is the reaching outside.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that side of networking.
Yeah.
How important is it to reach out to someone in where you want to be?
It's so important. I can't stress enough. Like I said, the main thing I did that put me on my journey was speaking to that sport development manager, and he gave me a job off the back of that. So in two aspects, if I look at it from two different aspects, one, you put your name out there. People start to know who you are. If you're passionate about it and you're driving towards it, people feel that passion. So hopefully they pay that back later down the line. With a job, with experience, if that's paid, unpaid, if that is just passing you on to other contacts. It's really important to be able to network, because it also builds your communication skills, it builds your organisation skills, it puts you on the map. So by doing that, in my experience, I put myself on the map that led me to a job, that led me to my employer paying for me to do a qualification that's been paramount to the job I do now. But secondly, that person or the people that you network with are in the jobs that you want to do. So they are a fountain of knowledge, of career path, of qualifications, of experiences, of contacts. So it's really important to be able to get the knowledge from them. What did they do? What did their journey look like? Now, nobody's journey looks the same. Nobody goes on the same journey, especially in player care. Maybe as a coach, it's slightly more, I guess, linear or similar. But as player care, it is not the same. So in those two aspects of, like I said, one, communication, and putting yourself out there and getting a name on the map, but just they have the knowledge. They've done what you want to do, so get it from them. Ask as many people as you can, because you then start to build a picture of what a journey might look like, and that sets you on your way.
Yeah. So, you know what? Let me reel back a little bit. This is what this is my
sorry,
stick.
yeah, go
no,
for
no,
it.
no, 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 no. You're great. No sorry from you. So, because this is a word that has been really important in my life for personal reasons, for professional reasons, and you know, it's such a big factor in whatever you want to do. And with what you've said, like with what you were just explaining, I'm gonna look in the camera. That's something that personally I encourage, and I'm sure you do as well.
Definitely.
To network, to reach out to whoever, whatever, wherever, whatever it is you want to do, reach out to the person that is at the place you want to be. It's paramount. There's so much you can learn. Get yourself out of your comfort zone. Reach out. Use LinkedIn. People will appreciate that you are reaching out. So I encourage that.
Definitely.
So further to that is it's a scary word. So I want your understanding and your perception of what is networking. What is network? Like,
Networking is building a group of people around you with different skill sets and different knowledge to be able to enhance your knowledge and your experiences. So when I've networked previously, so that I completed the TALS qualification in 2018. So we're talking a while ago now. I'm getting old, Tarek. I'm fuming about it, but I'm getting old. When I did that TALS course, there was people who were coaches, there was doctors, there was physios, there was admin assistants, there was such a variety of people, but we were coming together collectively because we wanted to achieve kind of a similar goal of becoming qualified and supporting athletes from a lifestyle or life perspective. But they would all come on different journeys. They would all come from different backgrounds. There was people from different religions, different race. And for me, you go into that room and you go, boom, this is a network of people I'm probably never going to be able to tap into again. So building that network, and what a network is, or networking is to me, is building a group of people and contacts around you that you can lean upon for support and knowledge. If that might be 10 years down the line. One of the most key people in my development was my manager in Australia at the University of Queensland, because she said, fake it till you make it and network until you know nobody else, because it's so important to have those people around you, and they all have their different uses. Some people will be, I've had this idea, what do you think of it? Some people might be like, I'm struggling with this, I need your support. Some people might just be for motivation. Some people might be guidance. It's different, but a network has its different uses. So build it with that in mind. That's been really key for me.
Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing about that word, when you do like strip it down and realize it's not as scary as it is that I think the biggest value is transferable. Anything, whether you're entrepreneuring, whether you're content creating, whether you're trying to get into a career, it's so key to develop and those personal relationships, that connection you build with a person
100%.
is really valuable.
100%.
So don't be afraid.
Don't.
So now going back to so obviously your journey's gone from uni to Brisbane to working with athletes. You're at Bristol City now.
Yeah.
So we talked about what player care was at the start.
Yep.
What was player care at Bristol City?
So I've been really lucky, probably in both my roles in football. I'm the first person to do my job. Okay. So the job has been created, and I'm the person that they've given it to. So thank you to Bristol City when they gave me a job, and then thank you to Tottenham as well. Appreciate it. So for me, I've had the ability to create what player care is. So when I was at Bristol City, I was the first person to do it. I had the opportunity to create player care from scratch and what it looked like. And player care at Bristol City, working with young females, was in my first full-time athlete support job, was probably quite a scary thing, because am I going to be the right person for these young people? But actually what it started to look like was well-being, life skill development, and being just a pillar of support. I know that sounds probably maybe three basic things, or the third one sounds, but when you're dealing with 15, 16, 17-year-old people who are trying to be 110%, 110% of the time, burnout occurs, challenges occur, and what player care quickly became was being somebody who fostered an environment where emotions could be accepted. Sometimes football can be seen as an environment where you can't be emotional, you've just got to be a performer. The two come hand in hand. If you want somebody to be their best, they need to be able to emotionally express themselves, and that's what I discovered quickly. Evolving player care was fostering an environment and a culture where both staff and players felt they could emotionally express themselves in a positive way, even if it felt negative. So if somebody needed to cry out of anger, it's a positive thing to do because you can learn from it, but somebody knows how you feel. Your teammates see it, your coach sees it, they know who you are as a person, so you then build relationships from that, you build greater connections. So player care was, Bristol City, at least when I started, was actually, what is it? The question you asked me was what it was when I started. I had no idea. I built it from scratch, and what we do in football clubs is we all have licenses, and we have audits that we have to meet, and we have criteria within those audits that we have to meet, and those audits and criteria set out from a black and white.
EPP.
So PJAC. So PJAC is the
Okay, that's different.
is the so for in the men's side of the program, it is the elite athlete
player pathway program, something like that.
Yeah, that was set up in like 2013, 2014 time to basically direct what academy structures look like on the boys' side. And the women's side, it's called a PGA, so Pro Game Academy. It's very similar in the way that we have a license, we have audit requirements, we go through yearly audits, we have to be audited every year, and they set out what player care needs to look like. So from a black and white perspective, when I started at Bristol City, needed to set up everything from off the top of my head. So education, how do we support players within education? We needed to have a performance lifestyle curriculum. So what's our blueprint of developing a person? Huge variety. But like I said, from the start, to me it was, what is it? And it sounded itself out as we went along.
Okay, so there's two directions I want to go. Like I have two questions in my head.
Hit me.
And I'm thinking, one of them is the more player care. Like, what is it? Because obviously, like we've talked about this off camera and previously about you know the different.
Yeah.
Okay, there's three. Okay. See, I've got so many things I want to ask.
I love it.
Like, I just want to ask them right to get the most out of your answers. You know what I mean? There's a bit of practice. So firstly is let's focus on the difference between coaching. First of all, actually, before that, first of all, we've got the in football academies, from research and from speaking to people in the section, from applying for jobs. You've got let's talk about the FDP, YDP, and PDP side of things, what they stand for and what they are. Yeah. So
in academies, especially on the boys' side, you've got pre-academy phase. So that is basically under nines. So that is those who are not really in the academy yet, but obviously that's an age where you're identifying talent. Then you've got YDP, which is youth development phase. So it's usually then from under 10s, 11s to under 15s. That phase then becomes more in-house, or that is much more directed around developing talent. So you've identified talent, you're now building talent. Then you've got the professional development phase, which is your scholars and kind of like your under 21s, under 23s, which is the phase where just before going on to hopefully a first team pro contract at that club, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that. So those are kind of like your three breakdown phases in an academy.
And is it the same? Is it the similar for in the
women's game?
Women's
it's reflected similarly. The women's game is not at the same stage as the men's is. So the volume of player but also just the financial capacity to facilitate that academy isn't there yet. But in the women's game, we have what's called an ETC, an Emerging Talent Centre, which is you can have under 12s, 14s, and 16s. Usually, what most clubs have. So that is opportunity for identified talent to get extra coaching and training from a WSL or a women's championship club, and then you have the Pro Game Academy, which at the moment is an under 16s and under 21s program, which is the pathway to the first team. So that's where you come in, and with us at Tottenham we have girls who are in full time with us, which is amazing, and it's great to see now in the women's game we have full-time players, so it's your equivalent of a scholar.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, the game is definitely growing and coming leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
So, from the reason I wanted that kind of player care, perspective of how the academy works, and you beautifully explained the boys and the girls side. So, I think that will add a lot of value to people listening and watching.
Yeah.
So, why I wanted you to talk about that is because you started with working with an Olympian who was in their mid-20s. They're probably a bit more established in terms of their identity and their ways of doing things. So I know it goes without saying, but let's talk about the differences of working with someone that's older and more senior compared to working with young people that are still finding themselves, learning about themselves, and trying to understand their pathway.
Yeah. So my experience is mainly with those probably under the age of 21. So when I was at both Bournemouth University and University of Exeter, when I worked on the scholarship programs there as a dual career advisor, I was mainly with those who were 18, 19, 20, 21, in usually either senior national teams or kind of the older age group national teams. But obviously my most recent experience and heavy experience is academy. So anybody basically I've worked with athletes under the age of 14 to those pushing into first team, senior teams. So there's massive differences, but there's also very acute similarities that transcend across both kind of age groups. So when you're working with a senior athlete in player care or athlete lifestyle, it's about managing day-to-day life and how do we enhance the abilities of that individual to manage themselves independently as successfully as possible. So we're looking at how do they perform under pressure, how do they manage the outer life of sport, so personal life, social life, even a professional life if they do things alongside being an athlete. How do they manage all that for it to, one, have as minimal impact as possible on the day-to-day being an athlete and success in performance and during competition, but how do we also harness that learning to transcend into sport? Also, there's the more financial challenges. Some are fully funded athletes, some are not fully funded athletes. If we're talking Olympics, if we're talking footballers, they are they earn good money, especially in the men's game. So actually, how do we help them manage their day-to-day life more as, probably as a footballer, you're more a celebrity than an athlete, if that makes sense. It's easier to name many more footballers than it probably is Olympians. So that changes again slightly. But at an academy age and a youth age, it's much more around building life skills, so transferable skills. So how do we help? In my head, performance, lifestyle, and especially for footballers, kind of has 4 umbrella areas that I focus on, which is emotional, physical, mental well-being. How do we help a young person establish those at an early age? So when they go later on in life, they're able to, when it's confidence or stress or emotional phases, how do we establish that in early life, that as an adult they may become more secure emotionally, physically, mentally. Social identity is another area, is the second area. How do we build the person? How do we build the person who is away both from actually academia and sport? Who just, what's their interests? What are their friends? What do they do? How do they de-stress? How do they relax? What do they do in their life that gives them escapism from the areas of stressful performance? Professional development. So how do we make sure they develop off the pitch with a career? They might go on to be a first team footballer, either WSL or Premier League, and have a great career, but when you get to the age of 31 and your anterior cruciate ligament goes and that's not coming back and you have to stop being a footballer, what do? What skills, qualifications do you have to fall back on? Life skills being the last one. Like I said, transferable. How do we build those transferable skills in people that, like I kind of alluded to earlier, if we can make you a good communicator off pitch, it's going to make you a better communicator off pitch. So those are the real key challenges we focus on in player care in more youth phase. It's also massively about well-being. Part of my job at Tottenham is also overseeing the player journey. So from induction, we have players in host families we have players from 200-300 miles away that come and they're with us. How do we make them feel at home? How do we make them feel settled? How do we look after them? But also maybe the harder part of the job, which part of that player journey is release. Retain release is a really big thing. Every 12 months we have to go through it. How do we support that player moving on to a new opportunity, and what does an aftercare program look like? So at a youth phase, player care is much more around establishing a person as opposed to making small tweaks to a person's life, if that makes sense. Hopefully I've articulated that okay.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think with the aftercare, because there's 2 things. I think from reading and from speaking to people, I think, as we've discussed previously, player care is different from club to club to club.
Massive.
And that could be because of culture. That could be because of funding. And it could be because of category.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So there's so many things. But I think a club that have nailed that aftercare program is Crystal Palace, because they have their 3-year aftercare program from was it like under 17s to under 23s, not under, like from 17 to 23, and you know, supporting them with their well-being, and that's definitely something I'd love to learn more about. But on the surface, that's what I know. So with that, a big part of conversations we've had is identity.
Massive.
And I mean, I've learned a lot about identity recently, and as human beings, we compartmentalize. Ideally, we're 5 or 6 different people. Like the older we get, the more or the less, depending what you do. And obviously, like you know, like if I talk for me personally, right now I'm here the host of a conversation.
Yeah.
At work, I'm the person at work.
Yeah.
At home, I'm the person at home. As I'm a partner.
Yeah.
I'm a father. Like I'm these different things and these different versions of myself.
Yeah.
And as are you with what you do. So I'm talking a little bit too much about myself.
Yeah.
But my point is, athletes, especially when in the academy system, if it's not done right, you can, and a lot of the work I do with athletes that I work with is getting them to acknowledge who they are.
Massive.
And where they are in their life. So
yeah.
Who are you? I'm a footballer.
Yeah.
I'm a student.
Yeah.
I am a friend and a sister.
Yeah.
This is an example of one.
Yeah.
I am a daughter.
Yeah.
And what no one seems, it's so simple and it goes without saying, but no one seems to think about how you're these different things, and then as you get older and you go through the different common transitions in your life, you might add mother to that identity, mother, father, husband, wife, this or that, and like in football, okay, my point is like with what I'm saying is, why is that aspect of identity so key in a young person that is growing up in a elite sporting system? So key.
It's so key. It's so important because in my, I guess, professional opinion, or in my philosophy as somebody who works in player care, is if somebody leaves an academy and doesn't know who they are or feels lost, I have failed in my job. Because everybody goes on a journey through life, and if we, obviously in football, it's maybe a football career is 20 years if you have a good career. What we don't want is somebody to feel that being a footballer is life. It is, football is life, and we love it, and it's, you know, one of the biggest, if not the biggest sport in the world. But success isn't defined in football by, well, I guess what the lesson is you're not defined by the successes that you put on the pitch, because those successes will only continue for a certain amount of time in your life, and you have to move on and go do other stuff. And football is a world of opinions as well. You'll have one coach who rates you as the best player on the pitch. The next coach should be somebody who doesn't want to play you. And if you are defined by what happens in football, probably a lot of the time you're going to be disappointed or upset or down. So what's really, really important is to build that social identity, to find other areas to feel fulfillment and feel happiness. And I think one of the key things to think about is, especially in academy football, we don't just break it down by academy or senior. We break it down, obviously, like we've said, with ETC or PGAs or the different phases in the boys' game. In those different phases, learning about social identity are also different things. So if you're looking maybe at a player who's 10, 11, 12, 13, it's just understanding what the constructs of identity are, what forms someone's identity, just to help somebody at a young age think about it and know what's going on. So understanding, well, I'm white, I'm male, I'm British, but I'm also part of the LGBT community, or I'm part of this religion, I go and do these different things, and it helps somebody just think, well, these are the different things that contribute to me. The next step is then understanding how much they mean to you as part of your identity. So for me, as an example, being part of the LGBT community is a massive part of my identity. To some other people it might be really small, but to me, my identity, it's really big and it's really powerful and it really influences me. So how do we help a young person understand those different meanings and how much impact? And then the next step is, how do they develop them? How do they take them forward, and how do they evolve that identity into hobbies? How do they evolve that into different career paths? Those lifestyle corners we spoke about earlier all interchange. So professional development, social identity, transferable skills, they all come hand in hand. If you are somebody who just loves sport, like we are here, we all love sport, that's why we're here. How can your love for sport transcend into a career that then pays you, that gives you a living and moves you forward in life? So that's really important to help a young person understand that you're not just a footballer. Football might be important and it might lead you to a career in different things, but knowing who you are off the pitch brings that fulfillment, that if you are disappointed in football, you can still go get fulfillment other areas in life as well, which is really, really important.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said that any better. Like, I couldn't have described it. So yeah, I love that answer. So just want to move on to a couple of topics before we wrap
Yep,
up.
of course.
So we've got my favourite question to ask.
Yep.
The biggest misconception about player care and
Yep.
what player care is.
I think for me, in my experience, the biggest misconception of player care is the word care. Care implies that we're here for somebody to come cry to. We're here to distract away from football. That's been my experience. Player care as a term can be seen as very pastoral. It doesn't encourage performance. So my challenges have been of encouraging people that actually I'm not here to just distract people from away from football or players away from football and think about their feelings and not talk about football, but actually I'm here to encourage, like I say, performance in all areas of life. So player care, I think, is still seen a little bit as a distraction, whereas it's slowly becoming actually, if we focus on player care, we develop the performance off pitch, which influences performance on pitch, and that's massive to player care. So I think the misconception is that player care can be a distraction from football, whereas actually it's really important.
And moving on, not moving on, but within that line, we've got in a lot of, I think in player care and performance lifestyle, it's so important to be able to communicate with different people, be able to sound, we can't do everything.
Yes.
You can't, I can't, if I'm working with an athlete, I can't expect to do a psychologist's job. I can't expect to do the physio's job. We're signposting.
Yes.
I'm not a coach. We're like a big part of our support is pushing them to the right people and building their network and their support network. How important is that? And in a lot of job applications, that working a part of that multidisciplinary team.
Massive, really important. It comes back to that communication, etc. But for player care, like you say, you're not a psychologist, you're not a nutritionist, you're not a coach, you're not an S&C, you're not a physio, you're none of that. And to assume that you can help with that is doing yourself and your job no justice whatsoever. But what that helps you do is build connections again with those people in those different roles. So in my role at Tottenham, we have analysis, S&C, physio, nutrition, psych, we have everything. So actually what's really good for me in my role is I like to see player care as like a problem solver. A player will come to you and go, oh, I've actually had this niggle, but I also don't want to let the physio know that I've got this niggle, or the coach, because then I'm going to be pulled out of the team and I'm not going to get minutes, and that's going to impact my opportunity to become a footballer. Actually, by being the problem solver is, well, we can deal with it in a way that proactively helps you promote a rehab program or look for rehab to get you back on the pitch as quick as possible so you're fitter and you play better. How do we solve that problem? Well, who do you need to speak to? You need to go to the physio and discuss it. Build yourself a rehab program with that physio that will then come back to an S&C coach to build the physical performance. And for a 15-year-old, that might be really difficult to do. So you kind of guide them through it by speaking to each of those individuals. Now, all of a sudden, I've worked with a player, S&C physio, and a coach. I've worked with 4 people for one probably minuscule problem. But you're putting yourself in the middle of a team and you're emphasising your importance. I'm easing channels of communication. I'm building relationships not just with myself and other members of staff, but for the player. And maybe when you're working with a player under the age of 18, you're going to be working with a parent. So all of a sudden, you're building these skills of working in a multidisciplinary team where you need clear communication, organisation, probably confidence as well. Sometimes you've got to sit we have MDTs every week, so a multidisciplinary team meeting, sit in those every week, and sometimes I've got to sit there and be confident to say something. I challenge you in what you're saying. You think it's good for a player to do this, I don't. But it's building those healthy relationships.
Okay, and this leads me on nicely to my next question is, what are the biggest challenges of working in a multidisciplinary team, especially when you've got people that see the development of this player as one thing and they want them on the pitch, whereas you might want them off the pitch because you want to support them with this side of things? Like, what are the biggest challenges? And parents as well. Like,
I think biggest challenges of MDT is managing many expectations, managing many thoughts and beliefs. Like I said, sport is a world of opinion, but football is a world of opinion. An S&C coach, a physio, a coach, a psych will all have different expectations. Now, we're unique in our role that we are there for the person. So we're there to sit alongside the athlete or the player and really develop them. So actually trying to help the coach battle their opinion that's probably contradictory to the physio because they want them back on pitch sooner, but also different to the S&C because physio might think rehab needs to go on longer. S&C thinks they can get on pitch and start doing some physical performance stuff sooner. Actually managing that is a really big challenge, but also, like I alluded to, probably putting your mark and your opinion and making it sound, or getting people's belief in it, people buying into what you think and what you feel. Those are really big challenges of working in an MDT. I think also navigating, even if you're all on the same page, the S&C is out on pitch doing a warm-up, the physio's in the med room doing rehab with other players, the coach is on pitch getting ready for their tech session. Everybody's somewhere else doing something different, so trying to also coordinate that can be really difficult. So being able to manage expectation and also build effective comms for an MDT is massive. At least in the experiences I've had. Like I said, I've gone from Bristol City, where we had a really good MDT, to Tottenham Hotspur, where it's even bigger. So much more resource, so much more time, space, money, whatever it might be, that only enhances the problem, or not problems, challenges. And it's just how you tackle those in an MDT.
So we talk a lot about, and a lot of the theme of this conversation has been about the well-being of the person, and the well-being of the person and the player, and etc. And I like the different goal. I don't want to use the wrong, but the different goals, objectives that each. I think that's a really important point. So, but let's if we reel it back to, I'm using that term.
I like it. Own it. Put your stamp on it.
So, like, if we reel it back a little bit, we've talked a lot about the player. Let's talk about you, the individual, the player care, the player care professional. How are you dealing with that? How are you dealing with your challenges of navigating so many personalities, demonstrating lots of different people skills and different ways of communication, because you're going to communicate differently. How are you managing with the pressure of making sure someone's okay? How are you keeping okay to make sure others are okay?
That's a good question. Like, naturally with player care, you are the people that, or the role that people want to come to discuss their challenges. So there are lots of moments in your role where you are picking up heavy feelings, emotions, challenges from other people, and they put that on you. And so it's learning how to connect with it but not hold on to it. So I've been told by some players in my time working in athletes at some very heavy things. I see that as a really big honour. If somebody feels they can tell me something really deep, really emotional to me, I'm doing something right. So whilst I pick things up, I see it as a positive. So I think a positive outlook is really key. So it's reflecting on what's gone well in the things I do and the engagements I have with people. That's a really big one. Self-care is massive. My job title is player care, probably staff care as well. Not just the players who come and offload, but you've got to be an empathetic person, and that naturally brings in other people and other roles and want to offload, but that's fine, we're humans, and I think that's a really key part of remembering your role as player care is you are human. If you forget you're human and you become a robot, I always say, try to perform 110% of the time, you will burn out. So for me, a lot of the time is, if I'm not feeling like I'm operating at my best, or I'm struggling to deal with a challenge, or I've got a job role that actually I'm not 100% sure how to deal with, I turn to myself and I will say, like, maybe today is my best is 85% or 75%. But if I give 100% of that, I've done my best. And that's how maybe I keep myself grounded and I keep myself in reality sometimes to be able to, when somebody then comes along and has a challenge they want support with, I feel ready because I keep myself realistic. You've also got to have your own support networks. I have people either in my kind of close team at work that I feel I'm comfortable to chat to and we can offload together. In personal life, I need to have my friends. I need to have relationships that bring meaning to me because that helps you detach. It's just like being a footballer or being an athlete. You need to be able to detach. You need to be able to step away and have your own release. So it comes back to social identity. It comes back to transferable skills. You know, it's all these different things. But for me, being able to go and find my own community somewhere else that brings fulfillment, that maybe helps me feel a step away from previous or challenges in work really, really helps.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I think it's so great that we can put the personal,
Yeah.
that the way we're encouraging people, these young people, these young footballers
Be yourself.
to be yourself, like that
Yeah.
is something that we can transfer onto ourselves,
Yeah.
because I think it's so easy to get lost in what you do and what you want to achieve, that you lose sight of where you are and you lose sight of reality. So I think
100%.
it's great from like someone that is in that role of player care and understanding and empathizing and things like that, that you shine that light for others to be like, well, look, the guy that's helping everyone needs help as well, but he needs
Always.
and you know, like I'm a big
Yeah.
the humanizing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so important to humanize.
It's massive, and I think if you can't go through life being happy in yourself, how can you help other people be happy in their life or continue to do what they want to do? So I think for me it's really important that when I do my job and I do my work with other people, I put myself on the line. I show them who I am. I don't be a robot. I don't talk about the objectives for my institution, or it's about person centered. So it's that empathy, and I really like how you use the word humanizing things and bringing things back to reality and making it human really helps me fulfill my job. I either supporting someone or helping myself navigate through it. So yeah, it's really important to remember at the end of the day, people just need to be themselves, because if they're not, the chances of probably achieving your best or achieving maximum reduce. I wouldn't say diminish, but reduce,
Okay, so just to wrap it up, let's talk about sharing. Let's give some advice.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
pass on some wisdom.
Yep.
So, what would you pass on to others on both a professional and a personal level? First of all, advice to anyone that wants to get into player care
Yeah.
or any kind of pathway that isn't specific, or any
Yeah.
pathway into sport. What advice would you give to those young people or those career changers or those people that aren't sure about where they want to be?
So I think professional advice, it can be so varied. The key thing I think for player care, if somebody wants to get into player care, if you're set on football, you're set on a specific sport, player care, the skills we use and what we do is transferable across any athlete in any sport at any age. They all face the same transitions, they all face the same stresses, so you can achieve experience elsewhere. I work in football, but I achieve majority of my initial experience in the university sector supporting dual career athletes. So if you want to get into football, you don't just need to work in football to get into football for player care. So I think from a tangible perspective, that's really important. Be yourself, because for people will believe in you if you be yourself. It's really important to make sure that you don't be a robot and you don't sound like every other Tom, Dick or Harry. You need to be yourself, make yourself stand out. How do you stand out? Network, put your name out there, chat to as many people as possible, get lots of experience, get qualifications that you know are important. Player care is moving down that route of more qualification focus as opposed to experience focus, so it's now the transition of both. So make sure you get the qualifications but you also get that experience. Be willing to try new things. I went out and worked in Australia for a year. I'm very lucky that I did that. Not many people can do that. I'm really lucky, but I went out there unpaid. I didn't earn money. I really had to work hard to do that, but I tried something that was scary. So if something makes you feel uncomfortable, chances are it's going to be really beneficial.
Okay, and expanding on that a little bit, sometimes it doesn't always go, the journey, just because you're there now, the journey isn't always smooth. It isn't always smooth sailing.
Hell no.
You get your doubts, you get your insecurities, you get am I doing this right? Should I be doing this? Have I done this wrong? Have I made myself come across this and that? Should I give up? When you have those doubts, those down days where it just doesn't feel right, how do you deal with that?
I think three things. Reflection. So reflection isn't just what have I done, but what have I done well? What did I enjoy? What did I not enjoy? What am I proud of? Reminding yourself of the things that made you proud or made you feel like you'd achieved. Remember those, go back to those, focus on those, then look into those situations. Well, why did it go well? What did make me feel good? That's really, really beneficial when it comes to reflection. Another great thing is having a mentor. My manager, who I had in Australia, she was so pivotal to my motivation and in the direction that I did, because she's continually, we've checked in many times, guided me, this is what I've been doing, this is an idea I've had, chatting it through with somebody else. When you're feeling maybe a little bit in those down days of it's not going well, I'm struggling to kind of motivate myself or give myself direction, somebody else can also give that to you. Sometimes our tank does run out. Somebody else can top that tank up for us. So lean on a mentor, find somebody to give you really positive direction. I think those are two things. I did have a third thing, it's totally escaped my mind from talking about that, but I think that mentor and reflection is massive.
Okay. And is there anyone you want to shout out? Is there anyone you want to, or anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to share?
Well, Kim, my manager from UQ, University, like I said, she was amazing. She was a former Olympic athlete herself. She won, I think it was the bronze medal at the Olympics. Amazing woman. And she was huge in giving me a little bit of direction. She said, fake it till you make it and network. Those are the two things, and that's always the advice I pass back on to people as well, as fake it till you make it. And when we say that is keep believing, keep driving, keep striving, because once you stop faking it, people realise that you're probably not going to make it. So,
final question, just to wrap up. Key takeaways from today, from this conversation, from this lovely little room.
This lovely little room, I've got to admit, is smashing. I think key takeaways for me: be human, be grounded, be yourself, because people believe in yourself, not a robot.
Okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Matt. Really great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And from a professional point of view and from a personal point of view, these are probably like notes that I should have taken. Every time I talk to Matt, I always have to write things down. But that means you're getting value from someone. But
hopefully.
So happy to be back. So happy to record in this nice little venue and to bring on a smashing guest. So Life in Sports Show, like, subscribe, comment, follow up on the socials, and we'll be back very soon for another insightful, meaningful, and gripping conversation. Big love, people. It's been T. I don't even think I introduced myself in the intro.
Yeah. Do it now. There you go.
Yeah, it was T. This show, welcome. But we're going. It's been real. Like, subscribe, comment, share, socials, everything. See you soon. And big thank you to Matt Shepherd as well.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.